Hello and welcome to another AP Computer Science tutorial. Today's tutorial is going to focus on classes, which are potentially one of the most important topics in an object-oriented programming language such as Java. So just to talk about classes a bit before I start showing you any code, classes are the basic structure of object-oriented programming. So basically classes are like blueprints for creating other objects. You would write a class and they would have different methods and other things that are part of them, which I will show you. And you can use those methods and constructors, which I'll also show you, to create instances of those classes, and those instances are what objects actually are. That's what object-oriented programming is based on. So now to get into the code, you may notice that in a lot of my tutorials thus far, I've been using this basic class. The name up here, depending on what the video is, usually this one's called runner just because it's running some code, and it includes this main method. And I've been putting in some statements here that I just run this main method, and whatever's in here, usually print statements get printed out, things like that. But this overall is the class. But today I'm going to be creating a whole separate class just to show you how to do that from the very beginning. And I'm going to be creating a different kind of class that it's more like a blueprint type of class that's used to create objects with. So I'm going to go out here. This is the main, I'm using BlueJ. This is the main project window, and create a new class here. So I'm going to pick something that's easy to find. It has a lot of different statistics, let's say. Let's say we wanted to create a list of vehicles, right? So class name vehicle, and open that up. So this is what it looks like in BlueJ when you first create a class. I'm just going to get rid of this stuff. This is a basic, well, it's basically what I'm going to be explaining in greater detail. It's kind of like blueprints for creating a class. And I don't need this code up here. So public class vehicle, that's what is up here. You start with the word public to indicate that this can be accessed by any part of the program. Class obviously shows that you're creating a new class, and vehicle. That is the name of my class, and you may notice that it's capitalized, unlike a lot of variable names that start lowercase. And now we get inside the class and look at the different parts that are inside of a class. So this is the class declaration up here with the public keyword. We then have instance variables. Those are the next part of the class that goes inside of it, the first part that goes inside of it, rather. So in front of the instance variables, you're usually going to want to have the keyword private, which basically means that only things inside of this class can access those variables. This is very important when you start making bigger programs and you want to keep everything organized and don't want other parts of your program accidentally accessing this. So in a vehicle, what would we have? Well, let's say a color of the vehicle, and we'll represent that using a string here. So this is basically saying that this class has a variable, or each object, created with the class has a variable called color, which is a type of string. Now, this is not actually, we're not initializing it to anything. We're just saying that this class always has a color. Another thing, and we start with private again, that a vehicle might have is let's say, number of passengers. So that would be an int, and I'll just call that num passengers. And as you can see, these are variables, so I'm making these lowercase again here. And we'll just start with these two variables. We don't really need much more for me to show you the basics of a class. The next part of a class is the constructor. Also very important, the constructor starts out with the keyword public, and then we go right to the name of the class, which is vehicle. And Then we have parentheses. Now the constructor is what people are going to use, or the program is going to use rather, to create a new instance of the class. And we want to address all of the variables in here. So these, inside the title of the constructor, these are called parameters, what will be put into the instance of the class. So we want something here, we want a string. Just for this basic class, we'll have the user type in this line, which will create a vehicle. So we want a string. Let's use the letter C to represent what will be the color, comma, and that shows that we're moving on to a new variable. An int, which will be the passengers. I'll just make that a P. It doesn't really matter what these are. A lot of times it's, with smaller programs, it's easier to use, single letters, although you may want to get onto more detailed variable names later on. And then we put the curly brackets here just to finish out the constructor. And inside the constructor, we are going to say that whenever somebody types this line, the color, because each instance, remember, has a color, is going to get what goes there, C, and num passengers is going to get P. And this is our basic constructor. Now, say you had another variable here, like, I don't know, number of wheels, right? And you assume that most vehicles have 4 wheels. You could, let's say I had a variable called wheels. I could just write wheels gets 4, and so every vehicle would start out with 4 wheels, and then maybe you could change it later on if you wanted to, but for now, we'll just create both of these variables using what's here. So after the constructor, now we have our different methods. So there are 2 types of methods in a class. First of all, we have our accessor methods. So accessor methods, again, you are going to want to use the keyword public here, because other things are going to access, or other parts of the program are going to use these methods. And let's say we want to, well, for an accessor method, first I'll start with that. It's going to return a value that's part of this class, or part of the object, sorry. So say I want to write the method getColor, and that'll get the color from the vehicle you're talking about. That's going to return a string, and then getColor. And we're not going to put anything in the method there because nobody is going to need to use that. And what this does, I'm just going to make it return color, and that'll return a string there because color is a string. And we're going to create another one of these to return the number of passengers, and that'll be an int. So get passengers, and we often start accessor methods with the keyword get, which shows that we're getting a value from the object. Make that passengers, and this is going to return passengers. Easy. So those are our basic accessor methods, and now we have mutator methods. So mutator methods are generally going to be void because they're usually not going to return anything. You're not trying to get anything from a mutator method. You're using them to change something in the object itself. So let's say we had a mutator method called paint, because you might want to paint your vehicle. We'll put a string in here called C again. We can just use that. And inside the mutator method, we want to be changing the color by painting it, right? So we're going to say that the color of this object is going to get C, whatever you type in for C. It's as easy as that. And we're going to do the same for num passengers. So this is going to be void again because you're not getting anything out of it. we'll just say set num passengers because setting is used pretty commonly. Pretty easy way to do it. Int p for the number of passengers, and here we go. Num passengers gets p, and yeah. So this is all the parts of just a basic class here. And now you'll see that because these methods are all public, we can access them from the main method, which I'll show you in a second. And the private keyword here means that only these methods can use those variables, which just cleans everything up a little bit. So now we're going to go back to the runner class with my main method, and I'm going to declare a new object that is a vehicle. So what I'm going to type here is vehicle, vehicle, and then the variable name of, the name of that object. So we'll just call it vehicle1 for simplicity, is going to get new. So this is how we declare and initialize and instantiate a object. So the class that it's part of, then the name, new, indicating that you're creating a new one, and then again the class name with the constructor. So if we go back here, we can see that in the constructor, you first put in, for this example, you're going to first put in a string for the color, and then after a comma, you're going to put an integer for the number of passengers. So in parentheses, let's say we have I'm going to say vehicle1 here is a bus. That makes more sense for the type of vehicle. So the color would be yellow. Well, it doesn't have to be yellow, but this bus, let's say, is a school bus. And maybe the bus has, I don't know, 7 passengers on it right now. So this is just going to create our basic bus. And now I'm going to use, I'm just going to use a print statement to show you how to access this information. So system.out.println, and this is where we use our accessor methods. So we could say bus.getColor, I believe is what I called it. That'll return a string. So if I print that out, if I run the main method here and print that out, that'll just tell us yellow, because this is it's running that method which gets the color and returns that string, and then I'm just printing out that string. And if I print it out, bus.get num passengers, that would be 7. So that's the basic, how to use the basic accessor methods. And now for the mutator methods. So here we had the method paint. So let's say we wanted to paint the bus green. We could use bus.paint, and then if you'll remember, for this method we had to put in a color. So green, and now we want to print out the color that the bus is. So bus.getColor. So what this should do is this creates a yellow bus, right? And then this line will paint the bus green using the mutator method, and this accessor method, getColor, should just say that the bus is green. And there we go, it's green. And that would work the same for, let's say, set num passengers. If we wanted to do that, bus.set num passengers, and then we just put an int in there, whatever we wanted to make it. Change the number from 7. And this will come in handy. It doesn't just have to be set. Let's say we had a method that stood for somebody getting on the bus. That method, if that method is called, it could just increment the number of passengers by one. And if we had a method that said somebody got off the bus, it could decrement the number of passengers by one. So again, as in programming, everything is connected. There's so many different concepts that can apply to different areas of programming. But these are just the very basics of a class, and how to use methods that are accessor methods, mutator methods, and basic variables that apply to those classes. So, on your own, you can try watching some of our other tutorials, looking at how loops work and other things like that, and try writing more complex methods for different objects or classes that can do really cool things. So that's it for the basics of this class tutorial. And as always, I hope you go watch some of our other videos, build up your computer science skills, and prepare for the AP test. Good luck.